And 2 weeks ago, we had a major sunspot activity, and I wanted to share with you how that relates to your heart coherence building practice. The solar activity, as you know, the sun is a huge ball of fire. And a few people, or at least a lot of people, know that this huge ball of fire has a magnetic field property. And if anybody's lived in the northern hemisphere, they would have noticed the northern lights. And what the northern lights are just the dances, the coupling between the two magnetic fields. And that is the one that comes from the sun and the one that is generated by Earth, Gaia. And so when the two magnetic fields kind of come together, you see a light show in the sky. It's called the Northern Lights, and that's essentially the Earth's magnetic field interacting with the sun's magnetic field. Now, what happens, the sun always has a magnetic field, but what happens on special occasions is that when the sun has sunspots, which means there are colder areas in the sun. For example, the sun may be averaging 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit heat. There are spots on the sun that are about 3,000 Fahrenheit heat. And so when they have this kind of an instability points in the sun where the majority of it is really hot and the other one is not as hot, you've got this dynamic happening between the hot and cold areas, and that dynamic causes a fluctuation in the magnetic field of bigger proportions than it would. It's almost like shaking a soda bottle up. When you shake a soda bottle up and you release the cap, you have all this gushing out from there. And that's exactly what happens when there's sunspots, is that you have all the shaking up and the solar flares, and that causes magnetic fluctuations, and that dances with the magnetic fluctuations of the Earth. And so that's why you see the lights. The lights are just an evidence or some sort of a consequence of these things happening. Now, we've talked about this before. We've talked about our bodies having magnetic fields as well, because as you draw these deep breaths in and out of your heart, every time it beats, generates a magnetic field. And you have a magnetic field. You're surrounded in a bubble of a 3-foot magnetic field, if not more. Scientists have measured it to 8 feet. And in that magnetic field is the signature of your emotions or your feelings. And scientists have also measured that. So you can actually take a frequency spectrum of your magnetic field bubble, your personal magnetic field bubble. If you take a frequency spectrum, you can see if it's a chaotic frequency, which means you're frustrated or angry, or if it is harmonious frequency, very ordered pair of frequencies, which means that you are actually feeling appreciative and happy. So just like the magnetic field of the sun, when it's under disturbance, interacts with Earth and you see these northern lights, those magnetic fields also interact with our personal magnetic fields. So as we are kind of surrounded in this bubble of ours, and we have this magnetic field interacting with us, especially when there's sunspots, and as I mentioned to you, the magnetic fields that we have actually broadcast emotions. Those emotions can be amplified. So if we're feeling frustrated, the frustration will be amplified because of that interaction. If we are feeling appreciative and compassionate, that compassionate will be amplified. So the idea is, what are you feeling every time? And you don't really have to worry about the astronomy charts or the astronomy announcement saying, oh, there's a solar sunspot coming. If you're practicing your coherence building technique like we're doing now, every day for 15 minutes a day, you will not, these effects will be dampened for you. They will not affect you at all. Or they will, but not in the adverse way. All right? So just wanted to point out to you that today that we want to, we've had a major fluctuation in the solar activity 2 weeks ago. And we will continue to have these. We will continue to have these. These are natural occurring things that have happened all the time. As a matter of fact, there's a Russian scientist, I believe he's a Russian scientist, who actually came up and charted the solar spot activity with human-led destruction or human-led achievements. He says that when he charted them, and we have a huge solar cycle or a sunspot cycle happening every 11 years, and when that happens, human-led innovation goes up through the roof. He's actually charted the innovation, and human-led destruction also goes up. So depending on the amplification of whatever energies you have, it amplifies it to a greater depth.